Hi, I'm Ross, lifetime natural bodybuilder. Going to get stuck into today's video straight away, which is a typical week for me at the moment during a bulking phase. If you want to skip to a particular workout or an exercise, there are timestamps below in the description box. If you're looking to upgrade your physique game, then check out my website. I offer free online consultations. Simply pop in your details into the form and we can arrange a consultation. Okay, so let's get into the first day of training. Well, I should start off by saying that I did general volume training on bench press the day prior to this. That was the first session. Didn't record that. 10 sets of 10 at 91 kilos, a kilo up from last week. We did some rows as well, 3 sets of bent over rows. And then followed up with day 2. Did it in the gym, did some squats. This was 190k, that went okay. No problems at all. Bearing in mind that I got 3 last week, I was feeling confident that I could do 200 for maybe 2. Originally I wasn't planning on doing that because I'd only done isolation to a few days prior, quad extensions and hamstring curls, and this increase in volume since coming back into the gym environment perhaps has been to the detriment of my strength, given that the same frequency of training that I'm doing. When you do more volume like that, you have to give more days recovery to see those strength gains, obviously, because you're going to be hindered by the extra reps and sets you're doing on those isolations. So yeah, unfortunately failed the 200, not really sure what happened, perhaps a little bit of doubt in my mind. Should have gone up, didn't, had to dump the weight, that was okay, but my knee fell onto the base of the rack at the front, which was really, really painful. And my knee really did swell up considerably. I thought maybe there was some damage there, but seems okay. I've squatted since, which you'll see later. So didn't really want to finish on a failure, so despite my knee pain, I decided to do an extra set, 140k for 5. And then moving on to stiff leg deadlifts, which, as I explained in my last video, it's quite a different beast altogether from Romanian deadlifts. It's essentially a dead start lift, but you're lifting with stiff leg form, so very minimal bend at the knee. Really trying to, just before I lift this, I envision trying to stick my stomach and chest out, especially my stomach into the hips, just to really kind of solidify that lower back, so there's minimal rounding there. And you can see the knee as a consequence of dropping it onto the rack. So whenever an issue like that, whenever there's swelling, I use ice, and for me this is the best technique. You just get an ice cube, wrap it up with some tissue, obviously to hold it, and then just rub it around the knee. Don't hold it for too long or you might burn the skin, so keep it moving. I do that until the ice cube melts. I might do it again if it's really hot and swollen. And I did that probably 3 or 4 times over the course of a day, and it really did help. The inflammation went down quite considerably, so something to bear in mind. So day 3 of training, back into a pressing movement. We've got behind the neck press. Again, GVT, general volume training, this time at 50 kilos instead of 47.5. And managed the 3 sets of 10. So really pleased with that. My shoulders have seen some considerable improvements since implementing the behind the neck press into my routine consistently. It's always been an exercise that I've enjoyed doing here and there. Despite the bad rep that it gets, it's just, as I mentioned in my last video, just because people consider it to be more of an injury risk, and it really isn't if the form's good. It just depends, whether you can keep the form tight, whether your body and your flexibility allows for the form that is required. Most people, I've found through coaching hundreds of clients over the last 12 years, will have difficulty doing an exercise like behind the neck press, and that's just because of postural issues. Generally, people are quite kyphotic. They might have something called an anterior head carriage, which is where the head kind of travels forwards past the shoulder line, and it means movements like this are going to be very, very difficult. So you have to be cautious when you're approaching it from a kind of normal layman's perspective. But if you've got decent mobility and good posture, then it's a really good exercise, and I think you're sorely missing out if it's not included in routine at least sometimes for your shoulder work. So a big part of bulking obviously is the eating. It's the hardest part for me. to consistently get the food in that is required. So we've got some real healthy Thai stuff there, some broth, noodle broth with beef, which is quite pleasant. Now moving on to the fourth day of training, and it's another squat session. I just wanted to see how the knee felt really. So yet again, we do our general warm-up routine, static stretching, foam rolling, and some lateral hip work with the bands, and then we do ankle stretches. If you're interested in seeing that video, I'll pop a link into the top right hand corner so you can see exactly the mobility work that I do prior to my squatting. But for me it's a godsend. It means the squats are quite comfortable, they feel good. Without that, it's really not pleasant at all for me to squat. So it's essential. And yeah, that link you can see in the top right hand corner. So far squat's feeling pretty good. The knee is stiff, but there's no real pain on the squat at all, so that's a good sign. And it worked up to 120 for sets of 5, and was quite pleased with that. So I didn't really know what the session was going to bring. And from here, basically what I'm going to do is probably do 2 sessions where I kind of gradually increase the weight back up to where I was prior, to kind of 190 for free. So I have 2 sort of sessions in between 120 and 190, and that will take place over the next week or so. 10 days time I should be back up to where I was in the rack at the beginning of the video. So after the squats we did some rowing again. We did some dumbbell seal row, which I didn't record. So no GVT for back this week, and then some GVT for arms. We did supersets, bar push down into double dumbbell curl. So for the dumbbell curl we do triples. It's just a much better way of lifting, in my opinion, with moderate weights. When you're not going for like a real heavy set, you can keep the tension on. I generally feel like there's a better bicep pump. You're keeping the weight moving for longer. You know, there's less rest in between each movement, each rep that you do on the same arm. So it's a nice alternative. We do 3 sets of 3, so 9 reps total, 10 on the push downs. I like the triple movement. I've been doing it on any kind of curl movement over the last few years. Hammer curls, regular curls. It just feels good. But then sometimes I will do a heavy session where I do just plain and simple alternate dumbbell curls, where I use maybe a little bit of loose form perhaps, and I will do those in the true alternate fashion. So it's just something to play around with. So this is my current form. Shoulders and biceps looking fairly decent from the back. I think a lot of the pressing has really helped in terms of the shoulder girth. And again, as I said before, food is such a massive part of bulking. For me, weight gain doesn't come easy. It's something that I have to continually work for, and it's going to be very, very difficult to do that with all clean food. As much as I'd like to, sometimes there has to be a little bit of dirty food in the diet to get those calories up to where they need to be. So this is a Waitrose pizza. I mean, pretty good quality. I try not to have too much gluten and dairy. I have no dairy really, apart from a little bit of cheese here and there for health issues. So moving on to the 5th day of training, and this is the last day, so a big session. Start off with dumbbell incline press, manage 9 reps, a rep increase from last week. Still felt there's probably a rep in the bag, to be honest, so pretty pleased with that, 45 kilos. But that's after an arm session. So the day prior I did an arm session. That's going to have a knock-on effect on the pressing strength. So if you're in a position where like your scheduling isn't optimal, so you've got like muscle groups, sometimes it just has to be, unfortunately, where it might interfere with the next muscle group the day after, and you're still performing well and seeing some progressive overload, then that's a really good sign. It just means when you approach that muscle fresh, you're going to then see an even larger increase in strength. So when I come back to doing dumbbell pressing, having not done arms already on the day prior, I'll certainly be a lot stronger, probably get close to matching that with 47.5 kilos or so. It makes a big difference. So the next exercise is lat pulldown. It's one of my favourite back movements, which you've probably seen in previous videos. Fantastic movement. You can see there from the side footage, just gone, the technique that I use. Then I move on to shoulders, and again, the same as last week, I chose the side delt machine. This time, however, I used a straight arm, which for me felt a lot better. I felt it more on my side delts, less on my traps and neck, which sometimes can be a bit of an issue when you're using it in the traditional sense with the elbow cocked at 90 degrees. So I'll continue to use it with that technique. Felt much better. And the overlay here just demonstrates the fact that I was doing pre-exhaustion. So pre-exhaustion, you choose an isolation exercise, then a compound movement immediately after, targeting the same muscle. So the lateral raise machine into a press works really, really well. Big fan of these, and it is debilitating, so you don't want to use it too often. But for me, the correct way of using these, choose a weight that you can do 10 to 15 reps on for the isolation, and then pick a weight where you can maybe do 3 to 6 reps on the compound. So it would be probably a moderate weight if you were fresh, but because you're starting the movement fatigued, it feels very heavy. The pain accumulates a lot quicker. A lot better pump in the delt. Certainly really good for anyone that has issues with mind to muscle connection. Also very good for people perhaps that have issues in their shoulders or wrists or elbows, because you can maximise the intensity of the exercise without maximising the amount of weight. So you can make a moderate weight feel very, very heavy. And that's the best way for me personally to perform pre-exhaustion. You don't want to be doing too many reps on that compound. It just defeats the purpose of it, really, in my opinion. It's not a superset. You're trying to pre-exhaust a compound to make it harder. So here's me doing the final set, and you can see the intensity is pretty damn high. Wouldn't have been able to get another rep out. And that was perfect. So, only just the one working set on that, and then move straight onto legs, where I do my isolation work to finish off the week of training. So quad extensions and hamstring curls, superset. This gym's set up in such a way that I can kind of switch between the two quite quickly, which is good. Not particularly busy, which is even better. So I did 3 supersets of this before calling it a day and going home to have another meal. So I've been tracking calories now for a few weeks, gradually working up to a good amount of food. You can't expect your appetite to increase overnight. If you're bulking, you want a surplus of food coming in, and you want to consume mostly clean food, then it's not going to happen overnight. You have to give yourself time to allow that to happen, to build up that appetite. So I've been quite loose with it, give myself a few weeks, and I'm getting closer to where I need to be. I just need to bring my carbohydrates up a little bit more to consistently get that 400 plus intake each day. And that will put me in good stead, not only for the bulk now, but also for the diet come next year. The more disciplined I am with tracking calories, the more consistent I am, the easier this diet will be, and the more food that I'll likely be able to consume whilst losing body fat. That's a turkey leg joint for anyone that's wondering. Really cheap, very, very tasty, a very underused cut of meat, that one. So my next video will be a super high carbohydrate, very quick and very easy meal to prepare, that's going to help you bulk. That'll be coming in the next few days, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. Stay strong.